Hey guys, what's up everyone? You have Spark Brian here, back for another Tuesday education stream. You have just me today because, well, it's still the tail end of the holidays. Some people are still out, and the people who are in, we're pretty busy working on a few things, but we have a lot to cover in the next hour. So in this Tuesday education stream, I'm going to be tackling part two of how to make an RPG. In part one, we did this about 2 weeks ago. For those of you who may have missed it, we have it on our YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com/joinprojectspark. And during that tutorial, we made what I will show to you now. So we created an RPG with 4 characters. You can switch between all 4 of your characters and play as any one of them. As you're playing as one of them, the other guys will follow you, and they have their own sort of NPC brains that attack your enemies. And anytime you can switch between them. And now we also in part one covered how to make a leveling and experience system. So you'll notice on the bottom of the screen we have an experience bar, and once we get up to, just like we did right there, once we get up to a certain amount of experience, all of our characters grow in their levels, and you'll notice numbers that I put just sort of as in a debugging mode over each of my characters, and that shows their amount of health as well as the amount of damage they do. These two things increase with every level that you increase by. And then I created different tiers of goblins. I had tier 1 goblins, and these are tier 2 goblins that give different experience. Some are a bit harder than others. And so all of this we accomplished in 1 hour 2 weeks ago. So now what I want to do is I want to go to part 2 of how to make an RPG and show you really how you can kind of blow off the lid of how to make a tactical RPG. So the things that we're going to be covering in this tutorial are, we just leveled up again. We're going to be covering how to make a tactical view system where the game pauses and you can kind of move around with a cursor, how to assign tactical movements as well as tactical combat to each of your different characters. And then we're going to talk on, lastly, how to begin to create a skill tree for your characters, how to make it so that when they reach a certain level, they get a certain skill. So let's go back in edit mode. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to start by creating our cursor. So if anyone here has played, maybe one of the most recent examples is Dragon Age Inquisitions. Dragon Age Inquisition is one of the things that we'll be sort of basing this tactical method on, where you can switch between kind of the third-person perspective and then the over-the-top tactical perspective. So to do that, the very first thing we want to do is actually have a cursor. This is the cursor that you're going to be using throughout your world to move around to select things. So I want to use the energy ring. This is a effect you'll find. And I want to use this as my cursor. So let's go in here. Let's just make it a bit prettier, a bit easier to see. Let's get rid of these magical lines, and then let's increase the intensity of that ring. Make it a nice, powerful ring here. All right, so we have that. And now we have our tactical cursor. The very next thing that we want to do is actually set up how tactical view works. So for that, I'm going to bring in a logic cube. And this is going to be our main tactical view logic cube. And just to make it kind of distinct, I'm going to color this thing orange. So now in this big orange logic cube, what we're going to do is we are going to put in the system for how you actually start the tactical mode of your RPG game. And also, this is going to be taking care of how you make things pause and how you increase pace and decrease pace. So the very first thing I want to do is I want to make it so that when I click on the left bumper, I can go in and out of tactical mode. So I want to do when the left bumper is pressed, I'm going to go over to math and choose toggle. And then we are going to choose the Boolean tactical view. Boolean I've already made, but this is a Boolean we just made here. So what this is doing is now every time I press on the left bumper, we're toggling this Boolean. A Boolean is just something that says true or false. And we're turning that on and off. Default, it's going to be off. So the first time you press left bumper, it turns tactical view on. You press left bumper again, turns it off again, and so on and so forth. So now that we have that basic thing, the next thing we want to do is actually set what we are pausing in the game. When tactical view is happening in your game, I want to make it so everything in the world is paused except for my cursor. My cursor needs to be able to move throughout the world. And speaking of which, I am going to go back to my cursor and just change its physics to character because it's going to move around the world like a character. And I'll show you how and why in just a bit. And yeah, Boolean toggles, probably some people haven't used it before, but it's awesome. It's just a quick way to quickly turn something on and off just by one button press. So the very first thing we want to do is we want to set an object set. And an object set is basically, I'm going to call this time objects, but an object set is basically you put a bunch of objects in your world into this set, and then you can call them and do certain things to all of those objects in that group. So what we're going to start with doing is we're going to add to this object set, we use increment by, every object. We are adding every single object in the world to this object set. So this object set basically means every single object. But we want our cursor to be able to move. So what we want to do is after we add every single object, we then want to remove our cursor. And this is just making it so that everything that you have in here, when you pause it, it pauses everything in the world except for your cursor moving. And that's going to be important. So now what happens when you go into tactical view? So let's set that up down here. So when tactical view is happening, we are going to first set, when you're holding down on the right trigger, we're going to have the world, everything in the world move as it normally would. When you're not holding down on the right trigger, everything is going to be paused. So you kind of have to hold down on the right trigger for things to progress in tactical view. So when right trigger, that just means when you're holding the right trigger. Then for each of, we're going to bring in this object variable or this object set up here. For each of timed objects, then we're going to set that all of their pace. The pace is how fast things are moving in the world. Default, it's 1. So we're going to say that it's going to move at its default pace, which is 1. So the next thing we want to do is when you're not holding down on the right trigger, then everything's going to be paused. So we do an else here, and an else basically just, for this instance, it's saying an else to right trigger. So when you're not holding down a right trigger, then all of these objects, their pace is equal to 0. And the last thing we want to do is we just want to make it so that no matter what, when tactical view is over, when you're no longer in tactical view, everything runs at its normal pace. This just makes it so that there's no situation where you're out of tactical view when things might still be paused. So we do that right here. So all of this that we just did in the past few minutes, this is now going to be able to pause your world. So let's go into test mode. So now I'm in test, I'm moving along, and I press on the right bumper, or sorry, left bumper. And you'll notice everything in the world has now paused. I hold down a right trigger, and it starts up again. I let go of right trigger, and things slow down again. Now you notice the projectiles still sometimes move while everything's paused. That's because the projectiles are being created before those objects in the world have completely paused. That's something we won't be covering in this tutorial, but it is something that if you were to create those projectiles in the world and sort of tinker with them there, that's how you could get rid of those projectiles moving. But anyways, we have already started to make the beginnings of a tactical mode where things pause when you're not holding down the right trigger and they speed back up again when you are. And then if we press down on the left bumper again, then everything goes back up to regular speed. Okay, so we have all of that. The next thing I want to do is I want to have my tactical cursor start moving. So I have to treat this tactical cursor like it's a character in the game. So that means that it needs to be doing something when you're not using tactical view and when you are using tactical view. And actually, sorry, an important thing that I should walk you through is tactical view. We're going to be using tactical view, this Boolean, in a lot of objects throughout this tutorial. And because of that, I want to use a global variable. The global variable allows this to be used in basically any object, and all the objects are talking about the exact same variable. So we want to make this a global variable. So now in here, we are going to say that when not global tactical view, we want this cursor to move towards something that we covered in part 1, which is the global player. So in part 1, what I tackled is basically whoever you have currently selected in the world, that is the global player. So when tactical view isn't happening, this cursor is going to move towards whoever the global player is, whoever you are controlling. And that just makes it easier so that when you switch into tactical mode, this cursor is going to be basically right where your player was. And then we want to make it so that it does things during tactical view. So during tactical view, we want to make it so that this guy, you can move around your world. So we want to do when left stick, do move. Just that simple line of code right there moves this guy around your world. And we also want to set up a camera on it. I want to do sort of like a top-down camera, so we're going to do a follow camera, put it a bit further back by doing a max distance of, let's say, 15. And then we want to have it so that it's sort of tilted more in a top-down view. You can still move it around, but it's more tilted top-down. So we want to do a minimum pitch of 20 degrees. And yeah, if the player is flying, then you could just do move with flying towards the global player. In this specific map, I prefer to just have move towards global player because everything's kind of on a more flat surface. And this just makes it so, this makes it a bit easier so you don't have to switch this object in and out of flying and not flying. But yeah, you can have this object move with flying towards things so that if those things are flying in the world, that's what happens to them. And that is all I'll do there before, let's go into test mode and now see what happens. So you'll notice this thing is still active, but you'll notice, see, it's following my main player. So that way, when this thing becomes active, then it's kind of right by where my player is. So let's switch into tactical view. And why is this not moving? And it's not moving because I believe I did not set global here. See, that is the importance of global. You want to make sure that all of your variables kind of match up. So let's switch back into tactical mode, and now you'll see that this is moving around. Of course, you'll also notice that sort of the character I've selected is moving around as well. And that's okay. That's something that we are going to fix. So I want to make it so that this cursor is not showing when I am actually moving around the world. So we want to set it so it is default, power off, and that makes it so that that ring no longer showing. Then I want to make it so that when I have started tactical view, as soon as tactical view starts, then he's going to power on. And as soon as tactical view has ended, so started to not tactical view, this little guy is going to power off. And so those right there just make it so that now, let's go into test mode to quickly look at that. So now you don't see a cursor around. You go into tactical mode, and then it appears. And then you get rid of tactical mode, and it goes away. Okay, so the next thing is we are going to set the different kind of selectors and cursors that happen as this thing is moving around the world. So the very first thing we want to do is have it so that this thing recognizes its enemies, and when it's nearby an enemy, the enemy highlights red. It's just a nice little indicator of how it's happening. So to do that, we want to make it, let's see, how do we set this up? What's the best way to set this up? Let's start with, deciding basically who the enemy is that this is looking for. So we want to bring back in the global player, and we want to set it so that their enemies, so the nearest object in their group of enemies, that is going to be the target. Do I have target here? Yeah, that's going to be the target of this cursor. Now I can say when my distance to my target is less than 1, then we're going to highlight the target in the color red. All right, and what that does is, let's switch into tactical mode. Let's go over. It's moving a bit slow, we can change that. And now you'll notice when I am hovering over a goblin, it selects that goblin red. So you can kind of see what the thing is that you're selecting. And by the way, for those of you who are joining halfway through, do not worry. Within 24 hours, this video will be up on YouTube. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, you're welcome. Let's increase the pace of this thing. Let's increase its movement to, let's see, crown speed. Let's change it from 6.6 to 10. That increases the speed a bit. And now let's have it so that you start having different cursors. So what I want to make, what I want this to do is when you've selected an enemy, a red cursor appears around the enemy. When you've selected a place to move to, a yellow cursor appears around that. So we want to bring back in the energy ring here. And let's make this guy red. And now let's also name this. And you know, we didn't name this thing. When you're working with a lot of objects, it's always wise to name everything. So we're going to call this tactical cursor. We are going to, first we're going to change this guy to a template. And then we are going to call this attack selection, if I can type. Then we're going to create another one. And we are going to call this move selection. And I'm going to change the effect to yellow color. Let's move these two a bit out of the way. All right, so now when you're in tactical mode, I want it to work so that when I press on the A button, that's where I actually select items. So let's set that up here. when A is pressed, the very first thing we want to do is we are going to set a vector variable. And a vector variable just sets basically an in-world point. And we're going to set a vector variable called target. And that's going to be equal to the position that you're currently at when you press on the A button. And that'll be useful a bit later on. Then we're also going to add in here, we're going to copy this line, and we're going to make it so that when the distance to your target is less than 1, then you are going to play an effect, and it's going to be this attack selection effect. And you're going to play it at the position of your target. My target position, there we go. So now if your distance to your target is not less than 1, we are going to have it so you're going to play a different effect. You are going to play this yellow effect on the ground. And we're going to play this at position target, because this is the ground that you clicked on, basically. All right, let's see that in action. All right, switching into tactical mode. So moving around, and let's select this goblin. Let's press A. So now you'll notice a red ring around them. And if I'm not on the goblin, press A, you notice a yellow ring. So something as simple as that just makes it a bit easier to see kind of what you're selecting. Just nice little visual cues for the player. You don't have to set it up exactly like this. These things are just kind of useful. Okay, now let's actually work on these brains of these players. So I'm going to be in edit mode for quite a bit to link up everything together. The very first thing I want to do is I want to create a new logic cube back here. So if you remember from part 1 of how to make an RPG, what I had done is each of my characters, I had 2 different brains. I had a brain inside of them. This is the NPC brain. And this is basically the brain that makes it so that when I'm not controlling this player, this is how they interact with the world. Then the brain right behind it, this logic cube, that is pushed into them when you control that character. And this is the control brain. This is the brain where you press A and your character jumps, you press X and your character attacks, and so on and so forth. So we have 2 different brains going on. We have the brain of when you're not controlling your character, and the brain of when you're controlling your character. I'm adding in a 3rd brain here. This is the tactical brain for your character. This is what happens when you're in tactical mode, because your character is going to act a bit differently. You want your character to be able to understand that you're assigning a different command to it, and understand to walk towards something or to attack something based on what you're selecting. And to start out, we are going to take this NPC brain inside of them. This is the brain of basically when you're not controlling the character. And the reason why we're taking this brain is because when you're in tactical mode, you're not controlling any character, you're just telling them what to do. You are telling a character, go attack that thing, or go move towards that, but you're not actually directly controlling them. You're controlling the cursor that's just telling them what to do. So they're really sort of non-playable characters in a way. So that's why we're using the non-playable character thing as a base. And really, on page 1, I want to have exactly the same kind of NPC brain that I had in my character. The difference is what I do with other pages, because we're going to need 3 pages on here. We're just going to copy this. So we're going to need a 2nd page that's actually going to be very similar to the 1st page. So we're going to paste, but I am going to rename this page Assign Combat. What this page will do is it will basically, and I don't need this team anymore, it will basically now tell my character, this is the page that is telling them attack this one thing that I've told you to attack. So I don't need to know who the leader is anymore. I don't need to know who to follow. I don't need to know who my enemy is, or I don't need to really know any of this. I don't need to check any of my enemies. All I need to know is basically once I'm near my enemy, I attack them. That's the only thing I need to know. And all I need to set is once my enemy is dead, or I have forgotten who my enemy is, which is my enemy is equal to nothing, then I am just going to switch pages in the brain back to the first page, which is melee logic. So we're going to go to values, text, and this is where you can find the text for all of your page names. So this is where I choose melee logic. And so I've taken kind of a bit more of a complex brain here that's controlling all the things that a non-playable character does. And then when I assign combat, the only thing I care about is here's who my enemy is, which I'm going to assign to it soon, and I want to attack them, and once they're dead or I forget who they are, I'm done. Page 2, this I'm going to call go there, because in this page, this is where when my character comes to this page, I just want them to move towards something. Once they've reached that point, that's it. So it's going to be a really simple page. It's just going to be move towards, go to values, vectors, and we're going to set another vector variable. That's a variable for a place in the world in game, and we're going to do target. Target is something we're going to set soon. So this is not set right now. Move towards target, and then we are going to do a minimum distance of 0 because we want this to move towards this target until it's standing right on top of it. And then simply we just want to say once the distance to your target is less than 1 meter, then you're done moving. And you go back to your first page. So I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to copy these 2 lines because I love to copy stuff. The less work I can do, the better. And actually, I'm going to make these 2 a child line. It is going to be useful in a few minutes, and you'll see why. So I've set up the basics of what I want to accomplish within this tactical brain. We have a first page, which is just a standard kind of this character operates on their own. They know who to attack. A second page where once you have told the character what to attack, they go towards that. And a third page of once you've assigned this target to a character, they just move towards it. So now let's actually hook this up with the cursor, because the cursor is how we're selecting things, if you remember. So let's go inside the cursor. Let's go down. Now let's add a few things here that when A is pressed, we're going to do a few more things. So when the distance to my target is less than 1, then all we care about is who the global player is. Because again, the global player is who you are controlling. And who you are controlling, that's the one you're assigning tasks to. So we want to say that the global player, first we're going to set a new Boolean for them, and we're going to call it tactical target. We are going to make this true. And then we are also going to say that the global player's enemy, so my enemy in global player, is going to be equal to the target in this brain. So these are basically saying, these are setting a new Boolean that we're going to be using in a second. And this is also saying that my enemy on that second page, this now explains who my enemy actually is. It's the target, which is whatever the closest thing that you're selecting is. When the distance to your target is more, we want to make it so you just move towards something. So we're going to also use a Boolean here. We're going to do global player, and we're going to use a Boolean called goTo. And then we are also, just going to copy paste here, we are going to use a vector variable, target, which I'd set on page 3 of global player, and that is just going to be equal to the target set right up here. So those have now kind of hooked this together with my brain. But these Booleans mean nothing. So let's actually make these Booleans mean something. So the Boolean is actually what you're going to use to switch between your different pages within here. You start out with the normal page, you have your assigned combat page, and you have your going there page. So page 1, this is the first page any of your characters start on. You want to use Booleans to switch to the pages that you actually want your characters to go to. So let's do when tactical target. Then I am going to switch to the page. Let's see, page 2 I called assigned combat. So we're going to switch to page assigned combat. Now we're going to do a second Boolean of when the goTo Boolean is equal true. Then we're going to switch to the page, go there. Oh, and the reason I use at, people use the at symbol with with different pages for different reasons. I just use it because when I use a symbol, it puts the page I want to use at the beginning of when I look into the text variables. It puts it at the beginning there because it starts with symbols. So I just always use at because it starts at the beginning of the list. All right, so now now I have these Booleans actually switching to these pages. The problem is, say this page right here. I have used the go there Boolean is true because I have set it right within this cursor. So I go ahead and I switch to page 3 because it's now true. So when the distance to my target is less than 1, I switch back to page 1, right? But go there is still true. So I go back to page 3 and I continue to cycle between page 3 and page 1 over and over and over again with nothing happening. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that before you switch pages, you make those Booleans false. So we're just going to do goTo equals false. And same here, this is the tactical target page, so I want to make sure that tactical target here is equal to false. And that is that. This brain is now ready. This brain is the tactical brain that I need for everything I have here to work. So I want to copy this and use it for my other characters. So let's first choose the tank because the tank and the fighter are very similar to each other. And the only thing I'm really going to change here is that I'm going to attack my enemy with a heavy attack because, you know, tanks tend to do heavier attacks. So now I am going to then create the page for my mage. And the thing I change here is my mage is a ranged opponent, or not opponent. They're a ranged ally. They shoot things when they're from a distance. So I want to copy his stuff from his NPC brain and just put this right here. Wait, I feel like I left something out here. When not my enemy is dead. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Okay, so let's remove this, and now let's add this. So this now shoots a projectile at my enemy. And we are going to do the same thing here. And this now shoots the ranged projectile. We're going to change this to Tactical Mage. And the last thing is our Archer. Last are our brains. So we're going to set Tactical Archer here. Archer shoots arrows, they don't shoot projectiles, so we're going to quickly go ahead and change that. So you are going to shoot arrows, not projectiles. And I also want to make sure that all of these 4 brains I just made are templates, or else these brains will actually try and reenact whatever you are doing when you are in tactical mode. So we want these brains just to be added to characters. We don't want them to actually be objects in the world. That's why we set them as templates. All right, so I have these brains. They are working perfectly. I go into test mode, and I start. I select my goblin. So the fighter should be going towards the goblin. And nothing happens. And that's because there's one last key step. The last key step is actually pushing these 4 brains that we just made onto these 4 characters. So we're going to go back to, in part 1 of how to make an RPG, I created this brain called Push Brains. And what this basically does is this understands what player you're selecting and pushes the brain to control them or to not control them. We want to use this for how to control your tactical players. But we want to create a wholly separate page because the way that tactical brains work is going to be very different than the way that the brains work when you're not in tactical mode. So we're going to do win global tactical view. Very first thing we want to do before we go to the next page is whoever your players, we want them to forget their brain because there are no players in tactical mode. In tactical mode, everyone is kind of on their own, and really your cursor is the player. So you want to make sure that whoever your global player is, they forget that they are being controlled by you. And now you want to create a new page. And let's call this page Tactical Pushing. So we're going to switch to this page. And we're going to do switch page. We're going to choose Tactical Pushing from here. So now this makes it so that when Global Tactical View has started, we go to page 2. The first thing I want to do on this page is actually work backwards. So what happens when Tactical View is over? So when Tactical View is over, so we're going to do not tactical, oh, that's tactical targeting, tactical view. So when your tactical view is over, we are going to make it so that everything we're about to set here, you forget. So that means all of your characters, they are going to pop their brains. And brain popping basically, no, that's the fighter shield. I don't want to do the fighter shield, I want the fighter. There we go. So that means that, here we go, we choose pop brain. All of your characters are forgetting what we are going to teach them on this page. Pop brain removes the brain that's currently in your character and brings back the old brain that used to be in your character. So here, basically these are the old brains we have on page 1. On page 2, these are the new brains. That's why we're getting rid of them. And then we are switching pages. Okay, so what I want to do is switch page. And I'm going to choose, what did I call this first page? All right, I call this page regular. So I want to switch page to regular. All right, now I want to actually, what happens when I'm on this page? Well, when I'm on this page, everyone is just going to start with tactical brains. I'm going to push tactical brains onto every single one of my characters. So I'm going to use push brain for that. So go over here, choose push brain, and then I want to select what the brain is they're pushing. So for the fighter, he is pushing tactical fighter. For my archer, she is pushing tactical archer. For my mage, he is pushing the tactical mage brain. And for my tank, he is pushing the tactical tank page. And the very last thing you need to do to have everything work is, you remember how big of a deal I made about global players? Well, you need to set who your global player is on this page. So we're going to bring in something else here called global party member. And I had set here, let's see, let's go to my UI brain. I had set here, basically, the party member is just arbitrary number that I created, and I decided to make it 1 through 4 because I have 4 characters. And I decided character 1 would be my fighter, character 2 would be my archer, character 3 would be my mage, character 4 would be my tank. And the reason I chose that is just because that's simply kind of how they are. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that's what I've put for kind of UI, and that's just sort of what I've been doing. So I want to make it within here that when global party member is equal to 1, then I'm setting who my global player is, who the player is that I'm assigning tasks to. So we are going to make global player is equal to your fighter. Then when your party member is equal to 2, number 2 on the list is your archer. When your global party member is equal to 3, then that is this third person on the list. And when your global party member is equal to not 0.65, that would be weird. When it's equal to 4, then it's this tank. All right, I know I've been in edit mode for a long time because I've basically been connecting a bunch of brains together and having everything work as one. And let me just look through my notes to make sure I didn't miss anything. And it looks like we are good. All right, so all that together finally makes our tactical system. So let's stop it. So I added a little bit of a UI element as well, so that just it's easier to understand when I'm assigning certain things. So for instance, I got my archer. I want her to move here. And you'll notice there's a little move UI thing that appears over her face. For my mage, I want him to attack this goblin right here. So its little attack icon appears. Let's say, for instance, my tank is really hurting. I want him to move back here. And then my fighter, I want him to move on top of this hill here for some odd reason. All right, so now all that's set up. Now I just hold down on right trigger, and you watch them kind of disperse. And you'll notice the other nice thing is if my warrior was in the middle of an animation, he'll, for instance, if he was right in the middle of attacking with his sword, he'll finish that attack, and then he'll move along. And so this is how you can already so we did this in about 30 to 45 minutes. This is how you can build a pretty robust system for assigning tactical tasks. And at any point, I can hit on the left bumper, and I go back to regular mode right here. And then I press left bumper again. And let's kind of set this a bit more strategically. So let's say I want my archer here. I want my mage right here. Let's put my tank here. And let's have my fighter also right there. So they're all moving. All right, so now I want to draw these goblins into sort of like a chokehold. So let's bring my fighter back here. Let's bring my tank back here also. And then they'll have to walk by the mage and archer, for instance. So they come back, and then you'll notice as soon as they've kind of reached their destination, their assignments are done, they move back into action because they switch back to their regular NPC brain. And that's tactical systems in a nutshell. And apologies, I haven't been keeping up as much with chat. Been pretty deep in the code, but getting to a few questions. You can put voiceovers and sound effects and technically music in your game using Kinect on Xbox One. When you're recording with Kinect, it records both animations and sound. So people have used this, I've used this to make voiceovers in games before. And yeah, so we have a full tactical system. Works pretty well. Last thing I want to cover is we have leveling. We got cool tackle mode. We got a cool party. But the only thing that's really happening right now when you're leveling up is you get more health and your attacks do a bit more damage. Let's make it so that actually when you reach a certain level that you get new attacks. That's kind of a key thing for an RPG. As you level up, you get new abilities. So there are a lot of different ways you can add new abilities and skills and create a skill tree in your game. What I like to do is, as you've probably noticed from all of these logic cubes right here, I love using logic cubes. And I love putting kind of all of my things segmented into different logic cubes to make it a bit easier to follow along with. We're going to make a level 2 attack for my mage. So let's do mage, level 2, controlled. And this is when my mage is controlled, how it does its level 2 attack. Also, I have decided for some weird reason that I like the color bright blue, and therefore my mage, all of its logic cubes will be bright blue, just so it's easier for me to track all of the mage logic cubes. So for my level 2 attack for my mage, I want to make it so that it's an area of effect attack. So it kind of hurts a bunch of goblins around me. So I want to make this a Y button attack. So when I hit the Y button, then that's when I do my attack. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to have a little effect play. So we're going to do play effects, and we are going to choose from here, gallery picker. Let's see, I like the fireball impact. We're going to increase the scale of this. Default scale is 1, so I want to make it 3 times larger, because that equals 3. And then we just simply do, for each of my enemies that are closer than 3, let's say. So that's closer than 3 meters. Then I'm going to damage them all. So I just do damage it. And another thing from part 1 of the RPG live stream I did is I set up this damage meter where it starts out as 5, and every time you level up, the amount of damage you do increases. So I want this to do basically my base damage per level, but I want it to do a bit more than the default amount of damage. Actually, no, because it's an area of effect attack. Usually that does less damage because it attacks more things. So let's just put a tiny bit of math here, where we just want to do that. Basically, the amount of damage that it does is whatever your base damage is minus 2, let's say. And so that, for instance, if the amount of damage you do is 10, this will now do 8 damage to all objects within 3 meters of you. So we have this logic cube here. Because I've set up a lot of logic cubes, ideally what you'd actually want to do is something more advanced, something I won't be covering in this tutorial, and that's using something called brain channels and brain slots. And that's if you want your code to be nice and pristine looking and work exactly as intended, learn a bit more about brain channels and slots. There's a few community members. One of them is Bob Smackey, who really are pressing forward with kind of all the cool things you can do with brains. We're also doing a tutorial ourselves on brains in the future. But I want to show you guys something that's easier to grasp and something that you can plug and play into all of your games. So I'm going to make this a bit simpler, and I just simply want to add this brain. I want to add it to the brain of my mage and the one where he's controlled. So that is this logic cube right here. And all I want to do is add in a new line here that once, because you only want this to happen one time that this unlocks the skill. But once your global, another thing from part 1 we set is player levels. So this just checks for whatever the level of every player is. Once that is greater than or equal to 2, and this is just in case for some reason you get 2,000 XP off of something that you grow 5 levels at once. You don't want to just make it equal to 2, you want to make it greater than or equal to 2. We're going to use something from multi-brain. So you go to brains, get a multi-brain, you choose add brain, and then we're going to choose this brain right here. All right, so we talked a lot about push brains and pop brains. Pushing a brain, basically your current brain that's running, if you use push brain, it shoves that out of the way and puts the new brain in its place. And popping a brain takes the current one, pulls that back, and then pulls in that old brain that used to be there. Add brain actually just adds lines of code from another brain, from one brain to another brain. So for instance, we have in our brain right here, we have 3 lines of code. This is added to our mage right here in basically the same way as if it were, for instance, if 3 lines of code were to be added below here. It's not an exact comparison, but it's sort of the gist of it. And so this is great because as soon as I get to level 2, then those 3 extra lines of code are now added to this brain. And just like that, we now have the beginning of a skill tree. So let's see how that looks. Let's go to my my mage. So we're going to need to level up to level number 2. So let's kill a few of these goblins first. All right, I'm level 2 now. Press Y, and then bam. Starts to attack these goblins nearby me. Of course, I can spam it, and it's just, you know, I'm spamming this area of attack effect. I can press the Y button over and over again every second. So that's not too fun. So let's just quickly add in a cooldown timer to this effect. There's a bunch of ways you can also do cooldown timers. I like to do them. I like to make everything kind of dead simple of what I do. So I just simply use I use booleans, and I use a boolean. I'm going to call it cooldown. So again, as default, when you have a boolean, it's going to be false. So that means that from the get-go, you can press Y and you can start attacking. But as soon as you press Y, you do your attack, then that cooldown boolean is going to become true. And then we're just going to set up at the top here that when this cooldown boolean is active, then you wait 2 seconds, and then the cooldown boolean becomes false again. So that just basically, those few lines right there just basically made it so that now you have to wait 2 seconds before you can press Y again. So again, let's jump in. Let's do a bit of tactical mode. So I'm attacking here. Let's jump into tactical mode. Let's have my mage attack this guy. Let's have my archer attack this guy. And let's have my tank attack that guy. And my fighter, yeah, you can keep on attacking the person you're attacking. And also the nice thing about this tactical mode is in real time, you can still assign tasks to people. So like my mage in real time, I can assign her to move there. So if you want to make a tactical system where, oh, my fighter is about to be destroyed. So see, like this is a perfect example. I paused it, my fighter is about to be destroyed. Let's move him out of the way, back out of harm's way. Looks like my archer is not going to fare too well, so let's move her out of the way. And oh, my fighter has died. Oh well. So I did not create this. I did not create this to anticipate what happens when you die. So yeah, so all of my characters are except for my are dead. But let's make it so I don't attack these level 2 creatures before I'm ready. So let's just stick over here. You know, probably if I had been a bit more tactical with how I did it, I would not have died. So now notice I'm pressing the Y button over and over again, but it's only every 2 seconds that this fires off. Okay, and the other thing I want to do is we have what this level 2 spell does when you're controlling the mage. I want to make it so you can see what it does when you're not controlling the mage. So we are going to go in and we're going to go to the NPC brain and just steal some things from it, which is just this whole bit right here. And let's just rename this to Mage Level 2 AI. Because I've been incorrectly using NPC because they are playable characters. They're just not played currently characters. This is the AI for it, though. This is when the AI is running for your mage. What we're going to do, we don't need a cooldown timer for my mage when you're not controlling them. We just simply need this bit of code right here. When the distance to my enemy is less than 15, then I attack them. I'm going to change this so when the distance to your enemy is less than 3, so that this will only work when enemies are closer than 3 meters, where you can actually start attacking them. Then we are going to add the 2 kind of attack lines we had down here, which is the fireball effect, and then damaging all your enemies nearby. Now we can remove this. And we can remove this too. And now, because we're using multi-brains and add brains, this is the exact same number variable we had with the pass brains, so we want to have just a different number variable going on here. We're going to call this AOE cooldown. You don't ever want your number variables or any of your variables really to overlap with each other or potentially mess each other up. Okay, so let's jump back into test mode. Let's go to my mage. Let's wait until we're all level 2. Bam, we're all level 2. All right, let's switch away from my mage so you can see kind of how he works on his own. Actually, let's switch in a tactical view. Oh, you know what? I completely forgot. I did not add this to my mage at all. This is just a brain kind of floating on its own. Also, I don't think I made these brain templates. This kind of stuff you want to make templates. So we just want to steal this line of code from where you control the mage, and just put it into both of its AI brains, both of its NPC brains. And then just want to instead we want to add in this AI brain to both the tactical version of this character and also the starting version of this character. Okay, now all that's hooked up. We are ready to go. Bam. Okay, level 2 now. I want to switch into tactical mode because I want my mage to continue onwards and face all these goblins by himself. Oh, right. You're too smart for that. Okay, let's make you actually move. Did I potentially run into an issue or bug? Unknown. But you'll see, you'll notice that sort of every few seconds or so, my mage kind of explodes with this AoE, area of effect attack. So those two simple logic cues right here are the beginning of a skill tree. What I can simply do is, say my mage unlocks something at level 4. I create another logic cube. Let's just call this level 4. Again, you really want to make sure that, especially when you're using all these logic cubes, you name them. And by the way, if you go to options, game settings, turn on show named objects. That really helps so you can actually see kind of the names of all your objects. And then you can add in whatever this new attack is, whatever that attack does. You know, if you have an idea for maybe a teleportation attack or a really cool supercharged fireball or something along those lines, you know, whatever your imagination comes up with, you set that here, and then all you would do is just simply put within the brain, just kind of copy this line, make it so that when you are level 4, then you add in that new brain. And then you just continue to go down with all of your characters. So you just continue to add these lines for every new level that might have a different skill. And you know, you can go as complex as you want from there. I mean, you can really, for instance, you could have 50 levels and a skill tree that goes all the way up to level 50. Maybe there's like 30 different spell types you have, and they kind of unlock at different times. And you know, you can really experiment that. For instance, when a spell only works when you have a certain amount of health. We haven't talked about a mana system yet, but that's pretty easy to do. Actually, Mescad, who's in chat, he's done some cooldown and mana type timers before. It's just youtube.com/MESCAD. But yeah, what we've done in the past hour, so we've taken the beginnings of an RPG, where 2 weeks ago, I made something where I had leveling and I had character switching, And we've made the beginnings of a really robust RPG with a really robust combat system. We got targeting, you're able to assign orders, you're able to have different skills unlock at different levels. So I hope if you watch part 1 and part 2 of how to make an RPG here, you're going to be well on your way to creating your own really robust RPG in Project Spark. I'm really hoping people find this useful. I know there were some bit more complex things that we talked through this stream. Definitely, I recommend if you haven't watched part 1, if you're not coming from part 1, you start with that, which is already up on YouTube, and then you come over here to part 2 and watch how we kind of progress from one to the next. And we added a few little debugger things here and there just to make it a bit more visual between 1 and 2. But really, this is meant to kind of be a 2-part system in a way. So I think that's it for the stream. That's it for kind of how to work around with your own RPG. We really enjoy doing these Tuesday streams. Every Tuesday we want to do a different education stream for you. We want to look at basically whatever questions you have about, I want to make this kind of game in Project Spark, or I want to do this kind of thing in Project Spark. We want to help you answer that. And so let us know on Twitter, on Facebook, on any of our social channels, on projectspark.com, wherever, what kind of tutorials you want in the future. A few we have planned is we're probably not going to be doing something, complicated for a while. We're probably going to be going back to more basic things. You can look forward to, we're going to do a tutorial on how to modify your champions, for instance, changing their cameras, giving them new attacks, things like that. So modifying champions is a thing that we're going to be doing. We are going to be doing a tutorial in the future on how to make a point-and-click adventure. We'll be doing one on how to make a random dungeon generator. But it's really up to you. Whatever you guys would like to see, you let us know, and we'll fit that into our schedule of what to do with these Tuesday streams. So I hope you've all enjoyed this Tuesday stream. This kind of concludes part 2 of how to make an RPG. Maybe in the distant future we might be down for a part 3. For instance, the random dungeon generator might be part 3. But I think this kind of wraps up the beginnings of how to make a really robust RPG. So anyways, hope everyone enjoyed it. And we will see you again on Thursday, 3 p.m. PST. Every Thursday we do our streams, and we have some cool stuff for you on Thursday. So thanks everyone for sticking around, and thanks for staying in touch with Project Spark.
Create your game as you play? Any Spark can do it. Spark, activate the portals.